Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the white channel, please do so. So now I'm bringing the news of why America will use an African and influence in Africa. In July, President Donald Trump walked out of a working session of Africa at the Group of 20 summit in Hamburg. In April, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson invited African Union Chief Moussa Faki to Washington and then backed out of the meeting at the last minute. You can see where this is already going, guys. Everyone is just giving up on Africa. And in March, the administration released the budget blueprint that one analyst says would slash and ban development programs in African nations. You see? Now you're telling me that US will still have that thing in Africa. It's impossible. In the battle for influence in Africa, policy experts say the United States is losing the battle of trying to have influence in Africa. Which is what Africans want anyway. They don't want to be enslaved by America. The continent of 1.2 billion has never garnered enough attention from the US and its Western allies. Experts say, but Trump's administration seems especially indifferent. If the US doesn't prioritize this rapid growing bloc of countries soon, it will be too late. It will indeed be too late. Very late. Africa will have moved on to other partners who will, like China, of course. It's obvious. It's a straightforward story, guys. There's nothing new, nothing made up. It's just how the leaders are handling the continent or rather the country in the US. Trump's proposed 2018 budget will cut funding for humanitarian aid by about 30%, shifting the focus from the assistance to the national security in developing nations. Obvious, it's always Africa. When they say developing nations, it's Africa, one way or another, Africa, and Africa. While it is unlikely Congress will approve the cuts, policy experts say these actions send a strong message to one of the most aid-dependent regions in the world. You are not a priority. Yeah, Africa is not a priority to America anyway. But we Africans, we think America is a priority to us. Wow, what a redundant perspective. It is a strong deviation from the last Republican president, George W. Bush, whose administration launched the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief called PEPFAR. That is credited with saving nearly 12 million lives. That's a lot. And while former President Barack Obama's Africa policies fell somewhat short of expectations, he did continue many of the Bush's measures and added a few of his own, including Power of Africa initiative to increase electricity access in sub-Saharan Africa. Obviously, they mean South Africa. But former Democratic Senate Tom Daschle said the Trump administration is asleep at the wheel. Wow. It is in its dealings with Africa at the panel hosted last week by the progressive think tank Center for American Progress. The most disturbing thing they are looking beyond us at this point, Ruben Bridget, former US representative to the African Union, said at the panel. As African continents, he meant, are getting their act increasingly together. They are no longer waiting for us to figure out what we may be doing. Of course. It makes sense. It makes sense as America right now is coming to its knees with the storming of the Capitol and everything. With the Trump administration's proposed department restructuring, the Defense Department will absorb many of the civic duties of the State Department and the U.S. Agency for International Development, which together provided more than $8 billion in assistance to Africa in 2015. Wow, that was a lot of money. By relying on security posture, experts says the U.S. capacity to curb famine and conflict and promote
development will be severely limited. Why is it severely limited? Wow. You cannot have a foreign policy in the most diverse continent on earth that is entirely a security-driven policy, says Richard Downey, acting director of the Center of Strategic and International Studies Africa program. If you do so, it will just become a reactive, expensive, and ultimately pointless exercise where you are just firefighting from one crisis to another. Wow, guys, this is getting intense. Massive continent should not be overlooked, expert says, because how this block of countries develops will shape the globe events in the future. Over the next 35 years, Africa will account more than half of the world's population growth, and Nigeria will surpass the US as the third most populous country in the world, according to the United Nations estimates. More than 40% of sub-Saharan Africa will still lives in poverty, presenting its own set of economic, humanitarian, and security challenges for both Africa and global players such as the US, the United States. The United States' economic influence has been waning in Africa for years, driven by a decrease in crude oil exports from the continent that began in 2011. The African Growth and Opportunity Act, which was signed into law under former President Bill Clinton and promotes Africa's integration into the global economy, was renewed in 2015. Yet, sub-Saharan African exports to the United States decreased by about $8 billion that year, according to the U.S. Census data. Meanwhile, as China, I told you, China, as China's economy has skyrocketed in the recent decade, it has showed up in efforts in Africa. China has expanded trade and infrastructure projects, increased its commitment to peacekeeping missions, and strengthened its military presence on the continent. Just last week, China sent 2 Navy warships to Djibouti to establish its first overseas naval base. China is viewed more favorable in sub-Saharan Africa than anywhere else, according to the global poll released last week by Pew Research Center. And while the United States is still largely considered the world's economic superpower, Africans have experienced some of the steepest drops in confidence in recent years about the United States' global economic position. Until the continent has further developed its economy, African nations will have to partner with whomever is available, experts say. Wow, that's the doom for Africa, isn't it, guys? Anyway, catch me up on the latest and the newest and the freshest scoop of the Y channel. Thank you, everyone.